This next section is about compound statements and connectives. So if you think of just how you speak normally to your friends, or even how I've been speaking in a lot of these videos and that sentence alone, we use a lot of phrases like and, or, if then to connect our thoughts. So these specific words are called connectives. And what they make, because they're connecting two different thoughts, are compound statements. So if you remember from English class learning about compound sentences, it was two different thoughts combined into one, and you would use the phrases like and, or, if this happens, then this happens kind of thing. So these are connectives and they form compound statements. Now, if you think of the word and, that's exactly what it means. This and this are going to happen. The phrase or means this or this, one or the other. But really that or can be taken one of two ways. You have an exclusive or, and you also have an inclusive or. So exclusive means one event or the other can happen. But not both. So a really good example of this would be the phrase, you can pay a $100 fine. Or do 5 hours of community service. So in this case, the judge is giving you an option, but you're not going to do both. You're not paying the $100 fine and doing 5 hours of community service. It's your pick, one or the other. The other type of or is inclusive. So in this case, one event or both can happen. So a good example of this is if you go out to dinner and the waiter's asking you about a drink and they say, would you like a glass of soda? Or a glass of water? There's absolutely nothing stopping you from ordering a glass of soda and a glass of water. So this way, both events can happen, but you can also choose just one or the other. This is the or we're always going to consider. It's going to be inclusive, and that's a lot like that union. It's joining those things together. It's one or the other or both. Exclusive is more select. So when you have statements that consist of two or more simple statements, these are called compound statements. Okay. So we have a ton of different connectives. The ones we're going to focus on is we're going to connect them with the phrase and, this and this, or this or this. We have if, then, and in those dot dot dots would be where you put that statement. And then the last one is if and only if. Okay, so these two are technically going to be more precise, and they're going to be conditional statements. So we'll talk about what each one of these means, but there's a condition that needs to be set for the thing to happen. So every single one is going to have a unique symbol to talk about it, and then we really have these phrases when we talk about them. So if I'm saying P or Q, I'm just going to say or, but there is a symbol for it. They also get special names. So the first one we're going to go through is conjunction. So conjunction is symbolized by, it looks like an A, but it doesn't have that bar in it. You can also think of it as an upside down V. And so it's symbolized by this, and it is really read as end. This looks a lot like our intersection symbol. That means end. But in the English language, we do have a lot of ways that we could replace end by something else. So another phrase you could say is but. Oh, I need to do this, but I need to do this. That's the same as saying I need to do this and I need to do this. Also the word yet, similar to but. And then the last one, which you're not going to see as often, is nevertheless. These all can be replaced by the word end and still have the same meaning. So just to give you some idea of how we're going to work with these, so we're going to write this statement in symbolic form. So we've got P representing the phrase, we will go to the gym, and Q represents the phrase, we will study. So I want to take this sentence, we will go to the gym and we will study, and write it in symbols. So if you think about the first piece, we will go to the gym, that's exactly P. The phrase and is symbolized by that upside down V. And then we will study is exactly the phrase or the statement Q. So in symbolic form, this is P and Q. If I try another example saying we will not go to the gym and we will study, well, we will not go to the gym is similar to P, but it has that opposite meaning. Will has been changed to will not. So really this front statement is not P. The phrase and gets replaced by the upside down V, and then we will study is exactly Q. So in symbolic form, this is not P and Q. The next connective we have is disjunction. And this really is just the opposite of conjunction. So end is conjunction, disjunction is going to be the opposite. So it's symbolized by the opposite symbol, which is a V. So again, to make that comparison just off to the side here, we have these two symbols for sets. This one means and, this one means or, and it's very similar for logic. They're just flipped up versions of each other. So this is read as or. Okay. So let's try a similar example. We've got the statement P, which is I am innocent, and Q is the statement I have an alibi. We want to write the statement in symbolic form. So starting out, this first piece is I am innocent, which is exactly phrase P. The word or is symbolized by that V. And then if I look at I do not have an alibi, that's the opposite meaning of I have an alibi. So that is not Q. Okay. If I look at this next one, I have an alibi or I am not innocent. I have an alibi is statement Q. Or is again symbolized by a V. And then I am not innocent is the opposite of I am innocent. So this is not P. Okay. So those are our two main operations to form compound sentences. This next one instead forms its own type of sentence, and this is the conditional. So the conditional is symbolized by an arrow and is read as if, then. So really, if you see something like P with an arrow Q, this just really means if P happens, then Q is going to follow. So because of that, we have two different components. This one I think is easier to understand. So if I go to the gym, then I will study. This is a consequence of you going to the gym. The starting statement, which is the condition you're setting, is called the antecedent. Ante meaning before. It's the condition that has to be set before the consequence follows through. Okay? So let's try an example with this, but we're going to do the opposite now. We're going to be given the symbolic form, and I want to translate that to an actual statement involving words. So now that we can start combining operations, really you're going to apply the same kind of rules. Think of your order of operations. So this is the statement I need to translate, and these are my phrases P, Q, and R. So the way you're going to read this is these are lumped together because of the parentheses. So this is your antecedent, and this is your consequent. The main operation you're doing is this conditional, because this stuff occurs first. This is the very last operation. So the way you can think about this is if P and not Q occurs, then R is going to follow. Okay. So if I want to put this in sentence, if P happens, so if I am innocent, this symbol means end. Not Q would be the opposite of Q. So instead of I have an alibi, it would be I do not have an alibi. Then my consequent occurs, which is the statement R. So then I go to jail. So again, just to kind of color code things, if P and not Q occur, then R occurs. Okay? So our very last operation that we have is now this if and only if, which is called the biconditional. So this is symbolized by a double-sided arrow and is read as if and only if, or to shorten it, you can use IFF. Okay. But realistically, what this means is you ultimately have two conditional, because the phrase by typically means two. So this can be broken down into two arrows. You have the forward arrow and you have the backward arrow. So if I write P, if and only if Q, this really means if P occurs, then Q occurs. So you have the forward arrow. And I can do the reverse. So that's basically putting the arrow in the opposite direction. So in this case, if Q occurs, then P has to happen. Okay. So you're able to merge it into those two different arrows. So let's try one last example of this, and then we'll summarize all of the different forms. But for this one, we've got three statements. P is the temperature is 90 degrees. Q is the air conditioner is working. R is the apartment is hot. For this first one, I want to put it in symbolic form. So I've got the apartment is hot if and only if the air conditioner is working. This comma then tells me, okay, I'm going to take that pause. And the temperature is 90 degrees. So the way I kind of have to break this down is this comma here is really telling me that I'm going to put parentheses around this stuff. Okay. Then I've got that phrase and, which is symbolized by the upside down V. Now within here, I've got the apartment is hot. That's exactly the statement R. If and only if, wrong tool, is symbolized with a double-sided arrow. Then we've got the air conditioner is working. That's exactly statement Q. And then the last piece, we've got the temperature is 90 degrees. That is exactly statement P up here. Okay. So this would be this in symbolic form. For this next one, I want to write the actual statement from it. So again, the thing in parentheses happens together. So my main operation is going to be this conditional arrow. So the way you want to read this is if Q occurs, then this other thing is going to occur. Okay. So filling in those pieces, statement Q is the air conditioner is working. So if the air conditioner is working, then P happens if and only if Q happens. So P is the temperature is 90 degrees. If and only if R occurs, which is the apartment is hot. Okay. So again, this sentence might not have to make a ton of sense, but that's what it is in symbolic form. And the idea we're about to get to is these statements could be true, they could be false. I don't know. But once time has passed, then I can actually judge those truth values. So I want to see, based on some combinations, maybe this one's true, this one's false, and this one's true. Well, what can be said then about this combination? Did I say something that in turn was overall truthful or not? That's our goal that we want to get to. So this section really just kind of introduces the notation, how we work with the statements, how we read them, and their symbolic forms. So the very last thing I'm going to do is just kind of refresh and give you a nice chart with everything. So for our different operations, the first one we learned is the negation. The symbol for that is that tilde, and the way you read this is not. So this can act on a single statement, it can act on something in parentheses, but you put that tilde in front of the statement PQ, whatever it is. The second operation is the conjunction. Its symbol is that upside down V, and it's read as and. So this will have to join two different statements, so P and Q. Disjunction is up next. That is the flip of this, and this is read as or, so you have P or Q. Then we've got the conditional statement, which is an arrow. It's read as if, then. So you'll see P with an arrow, Q. And then last but not least is the biconditional, which is a double-sided arrow, read as if and only if. So you have the arrow going in both directions. So these are the main operations that we're going to focus on, and now we can get into truth tables.